Every day I hear the same thing. AI is coming for your jobs. If you are in cybersecurity or trying to break in, you've probably felt it too. And it's natural to be scared because we know that AI is writing code, detecting threats, and even automating SOC workflows. Some say cybersecurity will be immune, while others say it's already being replaced. But the truth is more nuanced and, in my opinion, way more hopeful. If you know how to position yourself right, AI won't take your job. It will make you 10 times more valuable. In this video, I'll walk you through how AI is transforming every major cybersecurity role from GRC to SOC, threat hunting, AppSec from IM to forensics, and exactly how your task will evolve. You will learn what AI will take over, what it will augment, and what it will never touch, plus what you can focus on now to stay ahead. But before we get into the roles, let's frame the problem right. This isn't just about job security, it's about seeing the massive opportunity AI brings if you know how to use it. By the way, if you ever felt the same frustration or fear about the role of AI, drop a comment below. I would really love to hear your thoughts. I worked with AI systems that actually run security workflows in real businesses. I've seen where they excel and where they fail and where humans are still absolutely irreplaceable. Today, I'm going to break it all down for you role by role. So let's start with GRC. When most people picture a GRC role, they expect to be working closely with frameworks like NIST or ISO, managing risk registers, preparing audit documentation, and guiding teams through compliance. It feels like important strategic workflow, a chance to help the business stay secure and legally sound. But once you are on the job, the day-to-day looks very different. You spend hours copying evidence into spreadsheets, updating stale policies, digging through folders to find screenshots, and manually aligning the same set of controls across different frameworks. Sounds familiar? Instead of managing risk, you feel like you're managing documentation. Now, AI is changing all of that. Tools can pull real-time control data directly from your environment, auto-map it to frameworks like SOC2 or ISO frameworks. They flag missing evidence and even draft audit reports, all in minutes. The work that used to take days is now largely automated. It's efficient, it's accurate, but it raises a tough question. If the tool can do all it faster, where do I fit in? You might ask. Here is the answer. The judgment, the nuance, the context. That's all still on you. AI can tell you something is missing, but it can't explain why it matters or how risky it is in your business context. It won't catch when a control is technically in place but functionally useless. It can't tell your leadership team what a compliance gap means for customer trust or legal exposure. And it definitely cannot spot when AI itself is introducing new compliance risks. That is your job now, to connect the dots, to translate technical gaps into business decisions, and to be the voice in the room when security, legal, and leadership all need clear answers and actions. So, if you want to stay ahead, don't just learn the frameworks. Learn the tools that are AI-based, the GRC tools that are reshaping how those frameworks are implemented. Learn how to validate and adjust what they produce. Practice reviewing auto-generated reports and writing them for executives. And sharpen your ability to think one step at a time, especially as AI compliance itself becomes the next big frontier in risk. If this is helping you out, hit like and subscribe. It tells me to make more videos like this. And if you got a question or have a different take, drop it in the comments. I'm always curious to see what you think. Now, let's switch to SOC or Security Operations Center. Look, you probably picture the SOC as the high-pressure command center. Fast-moving, mission-critical, and full of adrenaline. You even imagined catching real-time attacks, making split-second calls, and being the reason your company stayed safe through the chaos. But once you got there, the picture changed. Instead of high-stakes decision-making, most of your time was spent buried in alerts, dashboards flooded with noise, logs that led nowhere. You weren't actually stopping attackers, you were sorting through false positives. And even when you found something important, your response was slow and the follow-up was inconsistent. So your impact remained unclear. It started to feel less like cybersecurity and more like inbox cleanup. And that's where AI stepped in and changed the tempo overnight. It now parses logs, suppresses duplicates, correlates events, and even kicks off playbooks before you even see the alert. What used to take 20 minutes now takes the system 20 seconds. The routine tasks that you once built for your automation are now being done by AI. So the question is, what's left for you? Well, the reality is the work isn't gone. It just shifted. Now, AI can tell you what happened, but it cannot always tell you why it matters. It doesn't know when a pattern looks suspicious because you've seen something like that before. It doesn't know your company's crown assets or how much noise your CTO or CISO will tolerate before demanding answers. Your role now is to guide the system, not chase its alerts. You tune detections, validate escalations, spot blind spots, and handle the cases that require instinct, context, and judgment. You're no longer the first responder, you are the incident strategist. So, what you can do today to stay relevant? If you are serious about staying in this game, it's time to learn how the tools work. Dig into how an AI-based SIM makes decisions, not just what it flags. Build playbooks, but also know how to break them when context calls for it. And start practicing how to brief leadership, because your real value now lies in being the ones who can walk into the room and say, hey, here is what happened, here is why it matters, and here is what we are going to do about it. And by the way, if this all feels a bit overwhelming, I get it. I've been there. That's why I put together a free guide and worksheet to help you figure out the best role for you and how to progress in your career without wasting weeks and stay relevant in the world of AI. Grab it from the link in the description. It's totally free, and honestly, it'll save you a ton of time. So let's move on to threat hunting. You probably imagined threat hunting as most exciting job in the SOC. It's like being cyber detective, tracing breadcrumbs through logs and staying one step ahead of attackers. You expected puzzles, creativity, and constant chess match. But when you got that job, it felt more like digital archaeology. You spent hours chasing alerts, combing through endless logs, and trying to prove a hypothesis that often went nowhere. You buried in data, checking boxes, looking for signs of attacks, and most of this time you found either noise or something was already caught by someone else. And now AI comes into the picture, and it could scan petabytes of data, surface anomalies, build behavior profiles, and even generate hypotheses for you. It connects dots faster than any analyst could. It could flag suspicious behavior you hadn't even thought to look for. And in some cases, it even recommends your next move. So what does that mean for you? AI doesn't know that a spike in access to a dev system isn't nearly as urgent as a subtle pattern around customer data. It can't weigh the intent of the attack. It can't sense when something feels just wrong, even if all the indicators look normal. That is still on you. You decide what's worth chasing. You shape the strategy, guide the narrative, and separate meaningful threats from statistical events. Your edge now is the ability to ask better questions than AI can answer and turn those fragmented signals into a coherent story. So how will you stay relevant? You need to stop thinking of AI as a crutch and start treating it like a junior analyst that you are responsible for mentoring. Learn how it works, use it to go faster, but don't let it do your thinking for you. And make sure you can explain not just what you found, but how. Because in future, that level of transparency may be the most important part of your job. All right, it's time to take a look at the role of AI in changing AppSec. Look, if you were drawn to AppSec, it was probably because it looked like a high impact, highly technical role. You imagined diving into source code, finding dangerous security vulnerabilities, and working alongside developers to fix them before attackers had a chance. It felt like meaningful work, keeping bad code out and good software safe. But when you got that role, it wasn't quite as slick. Much of the job turned into chasing down developers for fixes, running the same scanners over and over again, and triaging noisy false positives, and dealing with backlog tickets that tied to outdated dependencies. Sure, you were in the code, but mostly to double check the tools, validate false positives, and manage risk you didn't create. You weren't preventing the next breach, you were cleaning up after yesterday's build. Then AI entered the scene and all of a sudden started writing safer code faster than most humans could debug it. And now developers can feed insecure functions into an AI assistant and get clean, secure rewrites almost immediately. Tools like GitHub Copilot, CodeQL, SemGrep are flagging vulnerabilities as the code is written, not after. Your security scanners aren't just finding bugs anymore, they are fixing them. And the remediation backlog, it's getting lighter without you even touching it. So what does that mean for you? Understand this. AI cannot see the logic flaws. Maybe it can, but it cannot see as good as you can see. It cannot see the design flaws. It cannot see the privilege escalation pathways. Features that look secure in isolation. Remember, in isolation, but when chained together, create a security nightmare. AI doesn't understand intent. That is your job now. Your value has moved upstream into the design phase. You're asking better questions before the first line of code is written. You're guiding architecture, modeling threats, and helping teams build secure software by design, not just by patching after the fact. So if you want to stay ahead of AI game, start thinking like a system architect, not just a bug or a security vulnerability hunter. Learn secure design patterns. Get comfortable embedding AppSec into CI/CD pipelines. And most importantly, build trust with dev teams, not as someone who says no, but as someone who helps them shift faster and safer. In a world where AI fixes syntax, your edge is knowing what should never have been written in the first place. All right, let's move on to penetration testing and red teaming. Most likely your imagination about pen testing role was very cinematic. Hoodies up, tools loaded, trying to find the threats from the inside. But when you were in the field, it looked very different. A lot of your time got spent into scanning with Burp Suite, Nmap, waiting for Nessus reports to finish, and sifting through results. You spent more hours documenting vulnerabilities than discovering them. Yes, the creative stuff existed, but it was buried under layers of automation, templates, and report deadlines. AI can now generate exploit code from a single description. It can simulate phishing attacks with perfect grammar and psychological targeting. Some of the tools are chaining recon, vulnerability analysis, and post-exploitation into autonomous workflows no human needed. Tasks that used to take hours, like crafting a payload or identifying a misconfiguration, are now handled in seconds by AI. It's fast, it's impressive, and it's forcing you to think where your value lies. Look, AI can't spot a logic flaw hidden deep in the flow of a custom-built application or recognize when multiple low-severity bugs can be chained together into a breach. That is still on you. Your edge now is adversarial thinking. You are now looking for motives, the timing, the blind spots that no scanner can find. When AI becomes the baseline, you become the variable. Study how defenders are training AI to stop you. Then test those systems yourself. Build labs where you simulate not just attacks, but the attacker intent, and use AI as your partner. Because your job isn't to follow scripts, it's to write the new ones. All right, so now let's look at the role of AI in identity and access management. Before you took the job in IAM, it felt like the backbone of security. You expected to manage who gets access to what, enforce least privilege, and make sure that only the right people could reach the right systems. Right? It sounded very precise and critical work. And it is, don't get me wrong. But once you got into the role, the work turned out to be more operational than strategic. Password resets, cleaning up orphaned accounts, approving access requests, digging up through the access logs, trying to figure out if something is looking off or not. Most of your day was spent reacting to tickets and not preventing problems before they happen. And now, AI is reshaping the entire access landscape. It can monitor login behavior, spot anomalies in real time, and auto-enforce things like MFA or account logouts. Modern identity platforms can detect impossible logins, flag insider threats, and adjust access permissions based on the risk. A lot of what used to take hours of manual review is now being done better and faster by systems that learn from behavior patterns. So what's left for you to do? AI doesn't know why a behavior matters. It doesn't understand that a login from a new location might be valid, because someone is traveling, or that an out of policy access request might make sense in the middle of an incident response. It cannot factor in complex org charts, vendor contracts, or business priorities. This is your job. You're not just provisioning access anymore, you're designing how trust works through your organization. You're the one who tunes identity policies, guides exception handling, and makes judgment calls when automation hits a gray area. So if you want to stay ahead and go deep on platforms like Okta, Azure AD, or AWS IAM, just don't stop at configuration only. Learn how identity data flows into your detection systems. Practice tracing suspicious behavior through logs and context. And most importantly, build the judgment, because in IAM, risk often hides in the places that don't fit neatly into any role. All right, let's move on to forensics and incident response. When you picture forensics, it feels like high stakes detective work, tracking down how an attacker got in, mapping out their movements, uncovering the path others might have missed. It felt like tactical, urgent, and impactful. But the job, in reality, most days is slower and messier than expected. You spend hours pulling through logs and scattered systems, imaging hard drives, indexing events, and stitching together timelines by hand. This work is meticulous and often invisible. AI can handle all the heavy lifting. It can ingest massive amounts of telemetry, automatically correlate events across systems, flag anomalies, and lay out attack paths in a visual timeline. It decodes scripts, clusters, and even reverse engineer basic malware faster than you can finish your coffee. But remember this, automation still doesn't tell the full story. AI cannot identify what's relevant in a high-stress event. It doesn't know what to escalate or when to escalate to legal. You're still the one leadership will turn to when stakes are high, to confirm root access, to decide if the threat is gone, and to explain in plain English what actually happened step by step. When AI gives you 500 data points, you decide which 3 matter the most. You're no longer piecing the things together, you're narrating the breach. If you want to stay ahead, not only you need to master the tools, but also sharpen your storytelling. Practice turning complex incidents into concise executive briefings. Learn how to connect your findings to legal and reputational risk. Because in the next era, the people who rise are the ones who can bring clarity under pressure and guide the businesses through chaos and confidence. All right, so now you have seen how AI is changing GRC, SOC, red teaming, IAM. The trend should be obvious. AI isn't here to take over cybersecurity jobs. It's here to take over the slow, repetitive part, such as the evidence mapping, the false positive tree, the basic scan reports, the things that probably weren't your favorite anyway. You get the point? But this shift doesn't just happen in the background. It forces you to make a choice. If you keep relying on manual workflows, if you avoid learning new tools, you will find yourself stuck doing the work that is becoming less valuable by the day. Or you can step up, start experimenting, and make AI part of how you solve problems.